So hello everyone. It's Wednesday, and as promised, we got our legal beagle, as you can see. He's got a great face for radio. So do I, in fact. But alas, we are in this time now of sort of Zoom and Teams, and you have to look at our faces. So without further ado, hello, David Dewar. How are you, sir?
Hello, Warren Heroldt. I'm very well, thanks, and how are you? I think I've got a better face for a
Splendid.
restaurant than radio. You said
You know
having his
what?
coffee.
We such sluts for content that I'll talk to you anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But today we're going to talk about something that's
Well, I
quite
guess
interesting,
you're,
Dave, and
yeah.
you and I have been chatting about it, obviously behind the scenes a lot, and that's trusts. And why a client would need a trust. So, I'm going to let you do most of the talking. You are the expert. I mean, I'm just a financial advisor. I'm just a lowly financial advisor. So I go to a client and I see the clients with now becoming, quite wealthy in terms of their assets and that. One of the first things that I tell them is, have they spoken to their attorney about forming a trust? Because they are going to incur some, I call them death fees. But obviously, there's a way that we can circumnavigate certain fees that are put on us by the government. It's a wonderful government of ours. Um, and that there's actually different rules for rich people and poor people, and that's no one's fault. It just is what it is. So, Dave, I go see a client. They're worth 10 million in terms of the assets that they've got. Why should we start looking at a trust?
Warren, this with the latest press that we're getting, there are a lot of misconceptions about family trusts. The whole point of a family trust is asset protection.
Right.
People are going, oh, but I'm going to be taxed 45% on it. Yeah, that is the
I
rate for a
get that a
tax.
lot.
Yeah, that is the rate for a tax, rate of taxation for a trust. Uh, but that's not the full picture because it's not quite as simple as that, because that's only for profits that are retained by the trust. So, what one can do, and very often this is the best way to do it, is if you have an asset in a trust that is generating income and generating a profit, all that profit you immediately hand over to the hands of the beneficiaries, or you do it within the given tax year. And then what happens is it's taxed, not taxed in the trust, and it's taxed in the hands of the beneficiaries at their tax rate. So very often
Right.
you can bring a lower tax rate. And of course, if you've got multiple beneficiaries, so for example, you've got mom and dad who are now in their 50s and they're established and they've all that they need and it's all paid off, and the main assets are in the trust because they were clever when they were younger. um, you can actually then take that money and you can distribute it to the children. So
Is that
the
is that
children
upon death or at any time?
at any time. Um, this is how you work with a trust. You've got two types of trust. The one is called an inter vivos, and you can see inter between vivos, live people, and the other one is a trust mortis causa. Mortis death causa is the cause for the creation, which someone creates in their will. And that then
Okay.
kicks in at that point. The problem with the trust mortis causa is that you still will have to pay estate duty. But let's come back to that topic. I don't want to have too many tabs open at the same time.
Yep.
Otherwise, no one will know where we are. So the point is with the trust is that the trust is there to protect capital assets. It's not there as a profit generating vehicle. That you put in the hands of the beneficiaries, or what you do is you have a company which houses your income generating asset, and the shares sit in the trust. And the only time that the trust sees income on that is if you create a dividend and you pay the dividend into the trust as the shareholder. But then again, you just funnel straight through the trust to the beneficiaries. Um,
Right.
and
So if we have a look at that, in my mind, I'm saying, right, I've got a doctor. The doctor now leaves government, goes into private practice. Okay.
Yes.
These guys are generating some serious cash. So they form their company and they have their trust. So whether they share a practice with someone or operate on their own, their trust actually owns the shares in the company. Would that be a fair assessment?
If they can, because I'm not sure if doctors can have a normal company or an incorporated company. I'm not off the top of my head because
Yeah.
they're different. But the same principles remain. Particularly if you're a professional and you might carry personal risk. It's wise to protect your assets in a trust. You buy the house, you register it in the trust. You buy a car, you register it in the trust. Because then your assets are safe. So if you do, heaven forbid, touch wood, have a big professional negligence claim, your assets are still protected. Yes, I'm obviously going to advise that you make sure you've got professional indemnity insurance as well, through our good financial advisor, not so lowly as he claims, or Warren Heroldt, the Town Herald. And that is the one reason for having a trust. Well, primarily asset protection. The
That's it.
second, so if you run into any sort of financial difficulties, you've got that, it's available to you. The second reason is to avoid estate duty, because your first 3.5 million rand is exempt from estate duty, and then you
Yeah.
pay estate duty. And what rate is that at,
And
Warren?
if memory serves me correctly, we're looking at estate duty is 20%.
Yes, I have the same memory. You get 100 points for that. Well
Wow,
done to you.
woo, all schooling
Woohoo! Don't
paid
know what
off.
you're going to do with them, but you can have the 100 points. Um,
Yeah, thank you.
so, because anything, so if you've done well for yourself and,
Yeah.
you buy a house, over your lifetime, that house increases in value. You then you retain that asset in the trust. Um,
Well, for ease of
and then,
reference, we say the house is worth 13.5 million, right?
yeah.
You die. Okay, you're in for what's that? That's 2 million.
Well, let's do a quick
20%
calculation
at
on that.
10 million.
So
Yeah,
13
that's
million
because we get the first three and a half.
minus the 3,500 equals, sorry, I messed up that calculation.
So it's 10 million times
13
20%.
million
You're looking at paying
minus,
their estate duty of 2 million rand. And that's
yeah, you're right,
before,
1.9 million rand.
that's it. And then
And
that's
that's,
before even the executors, because the executors need to touch that asset. And therefore, that's going to attract a fee from the executors as
yes,
well.
yes.
So it is.
And,
It's very good.
as well as that, yeah, the other thing that goes with that is, um, you know, yeah, there wouldn't be any transfer duty because that's, if you're transferring in terms of the will, you are, it's exempt in terms of transfer duties. You wouldn't have to pay the horrendous million rand transfer duty or
Yeah.
1.2 million rand transfer duty at that price level, thank goodness. Uh,
Yeah.
but the executor is going to charge 3.5% on that, and then you're going to have the conveyancing fees. So before you've blinked, you're still in for an additional, what, close to 500,000 rand,
Quite
you know?
easily. Quite easily.
You know, and
So we're
if you
looking at
work
two
it
and a
out,
half million.
yeah. So now here's
And
the kicker. The way I always work this, you take that 500,000 rand and you work that out as a net salary for an individual. I think your average South African will earn what, 30,000 rand a month?
well,
So call that 20,000 rand a month after tax. So that would be what,
240.
20 25 months worth of salary to earn that money, roughly.
Yeah.
It's just over
Yeah.
2 years to be able to have the pleasure of transferring that house. That's a lot of time here. That's a lot of life given away for fees.
It is indeed. It's and it's really sorry. I'm getting a call from my brother in America, so I'm just pushing the button to tell him I'm in a meeting. I mean, a
Yeah.
very important meeting. Um, yeah, I mean, you look at that, and even if you look at the setup costs of a trust, we're looking at about 25 grand. And that's just, I mean, I'm sure we could work other things out and make it cheaper and all that. But starting to move your assets over into the trust as early as possible is really the way to go. And if you
Yeah.
even if you start as your first home, you buy that, you put it in the trust, and it's worth 1.5 million.
Yeah.
The nice thing is that your trust has now got assets. So when you go to the bank and you want to move to let's say the 4 million rand house,
Mm.
you can use the 1.5 million rand house in the trust as surety, or you can sell it and have the profits paid into the trust, and then use that as a deposit on the new place. Would I be correct in saying that?
Yeah. Yeah, you would. But you just have to remember that if you transfer assets from your name into the trust, you've got this little thing called donations tax.
This is that was going to be the next thing I wanted to talk
Yeah.
about.
So
Is
you
that's
can
why I'm
transfer that
saying
asset.
don't leave it too late, because
Yeah,
that becomes a
correct.
problem. So let's go straight onto that.
Yes.
Go for it.
So, donations tax is it's 100,000 Rand a year allowance, and it's been like 100,000 Rand a year since Pa fell off the bus.
Since I
So
joined the
the
industry.
first time I came across donations tax, I think was about 25 years ago. So in 25 years, it hasn't shifted upwards um, from 100,000 Rand, which is a bit surprising, and maybe it should shift up. But anyway, it hasn't. So be that as it may, we'll
Yeah.
deal with it. Um, so each taxpayer can donate 100,000 Rand a year without being subject to donations tax. So, and after that, it's 20%, which becomes
Yeah.
quite a lot of money. You've got 13 million Rand, that's a lot. But that's 100,000 Rand a year. So, you can transfer
So
the
that's
asset
mom
in,
and dad. So if you're married,
mom and
you
dad.
and your
Yeah.
wife can both, or you and your husband can both
Yeah.
donate 100,000 rand. Anything over and
Yes.
above that, and this blows my mind.
Yeah.
If let's say you've got a trust and your parents are going through a bad time, and you've donated your 100,000 rand, and you want to give your parents another 100,000 rand, that the government taxes you
Yeah.
20% on tax-free
Yeah.
money.
Yeah.
It really just
Yeah.
pisses me off. I must be honest with you.
Yeah.
I
There
think it's
might
ludicrous.
I'd have to check on it, but there might be a way around that in terms of the Maintenance Act, because maintenance is exempt from tax. But if that would include maintenance for parents, I'd
Well,
need to check. That would be an interesting little, but we're going down a wormhole down the side. But
yes, let's
what you
not.
can
Let's
do
come back to the
is
donations.
once you've got your trust in place, you can also get your parents to, um, make the trust the beneficiary of their will. Um, because then after they've paid because from one spouse to another, that's exempt from estate duty. So dad dies first, mom survives, mom inherits everything, and then when mom dies, instead of putting it straight into the hands of the children, she puts it in the hands of the trust. And then it
Right.
remains in the trust and can be used in the trust for whatever needs to be done. It can be invested in various assets in the trust. Um, you could even set up a company with the shares in the trust and make that company the beneficiary of her will. There's nothing
Yeah.
preventing that as well. So, there are things like that and can be used. And then let's say the company generates 500,000 Rand a year profit. Um, you can also pay salaries to, you know, you can whoever's running that company. So,
Yes,
you
of
know,
course.
you've got directors'
And all the
fees, you've got
beneficiaries.
salaries. You can move that money through that company directly into the hands of the beneficiaries. And then whatever's left, there's a 28% profit. Obviously, retained income, you get taxed. And then if you declare a dividend, you get charged another 20%. I
Yeah.
just don't want to be giving getting too technical here, but there are ways that these things can be manipulated and used. But the sooner you start putting assets in trust, the better. That's all I can say.
In
Because with
perfect
the capital
hindsight,
person, better. Yeah.
um, if you had to say what age, you start working, you've studied for 6 years, you start working, let's just say 25, you start earning a decent salary at age 25. Would you advocate that people start a trust that soon before they start accumulating assets?
Um, I probably would. Yes, I do.
Makes
Because
sense to me. I'm thinking that, before you
the
buy
sooner
that
you put
first
it
home and
in,
before you do
yeah,
anything, look, you can sign personal surety for the trust and still put the
yeah,
property in the trust's name. And then from there, Bob's your uncle. You're on your way.
yeah, yeah. The challenge with that, though, is that if you then sell your first property and buy a second property, you will pay capital gains on that in the trust because there's no exemption on capital gains in the trust. So that will sting a
Right.
bit. So that
Well,
may initially not be such a great idea. So when
hmm,
you get to your forever or your family home, that might be the right time to put it in trust. Or
okay.
when you've got beneficiaries that you want to look after, at that point, put it into trust. But if
Okay.
you're unmarried, no kids, you don't need a trust really.
Yeah, I always
But if
say to
you if
people
you've
that
got
whatever you leave
yeah
is of no relevance. No one's going to be worse off or better off. Listen
yeah
to score, but
yeah
it's not as though people are going to be worse off. It's they would much rather have you alive. Quite frankly.
yes
So then
yes
you just do the
you know
normal beneficiary thing, and I do your financial needs analysis, and I make sure there's enough for executors' fees and estate duties, and that's what
yeah
I do normally
exactly
do.
yeah.
So, Dave, just to sort of circle and start to land with regards to trusts. Um, any thoughts that you'd like to leave with our viewers with regards to um, really why a trust is such a good idea? What would you say are your two most, let's call it three, because I can think of three most important reasons to form a trust?
Let me just kill this call.
You
One,
see, we peeps, massacres, we are very important people.
yeah, that's the bicycle shop. Right. So the first reason to form a trust is asset protection
All
from
right.
creditors and the ravages of modern life. The
Mhm.
second reason would be for avoiding estate duty or minimizing estate duty because you want to we do
Right.
these things legally. And I'm not sure which is that you have in mind. I'm going to let you come in here and add to my knowledge.
Well, so for me, the third one would be once you start actually, and that's something we like to play around with, and that is commercial properties. So let's say I'm going to start delving into either residential or commercial. We put that in the name of the trust as well.
Yeah,
A You could even do a separate property trust for the properties, with the view to transferring. So you have the family trust owns the shares in the property trust, but you want to protect yourself in the property trust because things could go bang. I mean, land. What's the new buzzword? Without expropriation, without compensation.
expropriation without compensation. Yeah,
We get this lunacy continues, and all of a sudden you find yourself with a bond, but no asset. As
yeah,
ludicrous as it sounds, in theory, that could happen. But
yeah.
you also have
It
a
could
case where
happen.
perhaps a tenant is sort of doesn't pay or whatever happens.
Yeah,
You protect it in your own personal. So what it basically does is it says that so the third reason is your business person, your business persona is very different from your personal persona, and the paid off um, sort of assets like the house and that kind of thing. So it's
mm,
also you're not limited to one trust. That's the simple.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, you can have as many as you want. You then have to start looking at your admin costs of running all these things, because if your
Yeah,
admin costs are through the roof, yeah, it also doesn't make sense. You're better off, um, I suppose you could say, creating um,
company.
a bouquet of companies, so one
Mm,
company per asset if you want to do that, so
mm.
that you can ring fence each one into the risk of that one,
Yeah.
um, rather than anything other than that. That would be my
Dave,
suggestion.
thank you so much for your time today. I really, really do appreciate it.
Sure, Ron,
Um,
it's
it's
always a
always a
pleasure.
joy chatting to you, and
As
we're
well.
still going to get onto the act with regards to the doobie and what is personal consumption. We always used to delve into that on the radio, and people would send us all sorts of crazy um, messages, which was great fun. So, guys, if
Yeah.
you like this podcast, subscribe. Tell us you like it. If you have any questions, let us know. Put it in the comments below, and we'll try to get back to you as soon as possible. Other than that, no nonsense, guy. Keep it real, people, and use the brain that God gave you.